Hi, I'm Jeff Ludy. You're watching Ask Jeff, a YouTube channel devoted to educating, encouraging, and empowering entrepreneurs. I'm so glad you're watching. If you have a question for me, send it to ask@jeffludy.com. So, I got a question from a guy. He said, Jeff, give me some advice on what to do when I'm feeling stumped. You know, sometimes you get in front of a client, you get in front of a customer, you get in front of maybe it's a vendor or something, but you're kind of the guy that's supposed to maybe know the answer to a question, and somebody asks you a question and it stumps you for a minute. How do you handle that? How do you keep from dropping the ball so you don't have to recover? So it's real simple. And I'm gonna always say, whatever you do, don't lie and make up stuff. If you have to, this would be the last option, but if you have to, what you should say right then is, I don't know, let me find out. 7 simple words. I don't know, let me find out. Number one, if you say that, they're gonna just stop, right? They're not gonna keep prodding you on that subject because you already said, I don't know, let me find out. But I'd like to give you a couple of ideas of what you could do before you have to jump to that. Because you have to remember, Zig Ziglar says this. He said, if they like you, they'll listen to you. If they trust you, they'll do business with you. So you can't violate their trust by lying and making up stuff. And that's why it's good to be honest. But you also don't want to come across as a guy who doesn't know and understand his product or what the question is that's being asked, unless you really don't understand. So here's what I would do. If somebody says to you, please answer for me, is this a 3 1/4 inch or a 4 9/16 inch? Give you an example here for selling windows. Number one is you should pause. Just pause. Give your brain a minute because maybe you do know. Have you ever listened to a song and you're like, oh, I know this song, who sings this? And you know, it's taking you a second, then you put it in there, oh yeah, Jay Giles Band, one hit wonder. So pause, that's the first thing you can do. Now don't pause where it's awkward or weird because that's not gonna be cool. The second thing is you say, could you elaborate on that a little bit more? I wanna make sure I understand you. And by the way, that's great in a marriage or any relationship you have. If someone asks you something, it's always good to say, can you elaborate on that a little bit more? I wanna make sure I'm understanding your question. Now they get to say, well, what I wanna know is the depth on this frame. Is it 3 1/4 or is it 4 9/16? See, now you get them to say it again. And most people, if they think they maybe got it wrong the first time or they don't feel like you got it and you ask them to elaborate, they will elaborate. They will move it into more than just that question. It'll sound more like this. So is that the 3 1/4 or 4 9/16 inch frame? The reason I'm asking is I want to know if the blinds that I have today will still work when we put in this new window. And if that window's deeper, I'm just wondering if that's going to interfere with the blinds or not. See, they kind of gave you the question behind the real question, which by the way, I have a great video dedicated just to that subject. It's called HELLO, where I explain how to listen better. So that's the second thing you can do is, you pause, then you ask them to elaborate. The third thing you can do now is you can say back to them what you thought you heard them say. Also great in relationships, because when you're saying that back, sometimes your brain is so wonderful. It'll give you the words and it'll pop into your head, and the answer you're giving them, you can tell they're nodding and you're going down the right path and you've answered their question, and now everyone is satisfied. So in this example, after he explained or she explained this to me, I would be able to say then, oh, okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you're saying because of these blinds, which are beautiful by the way, you want to know, is this going to come in too far and cause a problem for that? Okay, I get that. So yes, this is the 4 9/16 inch frame, and based on what I see here, you have the 1 1/2 inch mini blinds. The 1 1/2 should work. Let me grab a tape measure and let's check. If you had the 2 1/2 or the 3 inch, I'd be concerned about it, but let's check. That's a good question. Now all of a sudden it gave you an understanding of where you're going with this using your own understanding of the products that you sell or whatever the circumstance may be. Here's the fifth one. You could turn to someone else if there's someone else there in the room with you. Say, that's a great question for Jeremy. Jeremy actually handles that part of our business. Jeremy, do you want to take this one? And you punt. You hand it off to someone else. Usually that someone else hopefully has already stepped in and saw that was a question directed for them. But if that's the case, you can always make sure you hand it off. Now, nice thing about working with phones, especially if you have an iPhone and you have FaceTime, is that's a great time to say, you know what, I don't know, but I will find out. Let me get Jeremy on FaceTime and ask him this question. I know he's run into this before. There you go. And now we got Jeremy on the phone, he answered the question. That's all I can think of. If you can't get if you can't get the answer, you feel stumped, you're stuck right there. After those attempts, then you go to the one we talked about at the very beginning, the nuclear option, which you don't want to have to use unless you really need to. And that is, I don't know, but I'll find out. And guess what? You better find out, and you better get them an answer, and it better be in a very timely way. And if it's complicated at all, even better if you can reference a link in your response to explain this is where my answer came from, so you can have a complete understanding. Remember, if this question is important to them, they will want you to go get the answer. And if they want you to go get the answer and they're willing to wait for the answer, make it a good one. Don't just skimp. Give them great detail, because this might be the type of buyer who is basing their thoughts and their decisions using sophisticated thinking, and they're going to want to have more details. Last comment on that. There's 4 types of buyers. I threw in a 5th one. It's a great video about that, the 4 types of buyers, and I explained some of that and why having an answer for a sophisticated buyer is going to be really important if you ever get stumped. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to send me an email to ask@jeffludy.com. Have a great day.